Thank you very much for joining me on this Thursday. I'm meteorologist Brian Shields. Don't want to waste your time, and we have lots to cover. So I want to get to, again, a lot of areas we're watching. This is common for this time of year, but we have a few unusual things. One thing I'm going to get into, actually a few things. Let me show you what we're going to cover. The Gulf of Mexico, some of the development in the Gulf of Mexico, and I wanted to get into a spot the Hurricane Center doesn't have highlighted, but that's in the Caribbean. And again, I like to give you the lead time. I see things kind of out in advance, and I want to give you that information ahead of time. That's why I do this channel. So I'm going to get into the Caribbean where we could see some development. I also want to get into what's going on for California and Mexico. Hilary is going to be a big time system, a historic system for the southwestern United States. We'll cover that. And then these two tropical waves out there. So again, Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean, Mexico, and California and the southwest United States, and then these two tropical waves that are out there. So in this video, covering all of that for you. So let me start here. Here's the Gulf of Mexico. Here's the Caribbean, and we've had that flare-up of rain. We did have the isolated flooding the last few days as we were tracking together in parts of the southeastern Caribbean. I was watching over toward Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada. We had some of the rain. Now what's happening as this impulse starts to work its way, this kind of tropical wave works its way through the Caribbean. Note another flare-up of some rain and storms near northern Venezuela and Grenada and closer to the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. This is the moisture that's really going to build, especially over by the Bahamas, that could eventually be a threat for the Gulf of Mexico. So that's what I'll be watching. Now, what's going to happen is that moisture I just showed you here, okay, it's going to shift toward the Bahamas and then toward Florida. And then by the time we get into the weekend and early next week, this moisture will feed into the Gulf of Mexico. And then it could develop. The Gulf of Mexico, very warm water out here. Not a ton of wind shear. Wind shear is a good thing in the hurricane season. Those are winds coming in the opposite direction of the storms, knocking off the cloud tops and preventing them from developing. So conditions here are conducive for some development. And the big concern this season will be the water temperatures. How quickly does something try to spin up? And if something spins up, does it move toward Louisiana and Texas or a little bit more toward Mexico? It's a wait and see because, again, this hasn't developed, but that's what I'm watching. I know some spots in Texas and Louisiana, way too dry. Hopefully we could get a very weak system nearby. Sometimes in the tropics, we could get a lot of good news so long things don't blow up into a major hurricane or anything like that. But again, watching that, you see that spot right here. Again, this is going to kind of flare up a little bit, and that's what's going to work its way into the Gulf of Mexico. This here, that is Hilary. That is going to work its way up toward the Baja of California, Gulf of California, in southwestern United States. I'm going to cover that and then look at all this activity out there watching that. So let me break down the model. I know I'm going to block this a little bit because I want to talk about this first, but I'm going to shift back here to this historic system in a moment and zoom down into that. But let's cover what's going on here. This is as we work our way into tonight. Now, scattered showers and storms, not taking my eye off the ball in the short-term forecast, watching some rain and storms. But a couple things happen here. This is the American model. It's actually been doing a pretty good job. There's the flare-up of rain I was just talking about right there near the Bahamas. This is as we get into the weekend. This is Saturday, and still watching the action out here. Okay, not seeing huge signs of development. I'll dive into that in a moment. But look what happens as we work our way into next week. This is early next week, right here. Now, the models aren't necessarily saying, hey, this is definitely going to be a tropical storm or hurricane, but definitely a hint of something trying to at least develop here. It's going to be a wait and see because the conditions are conducive for development, but not super conducive. So again, it is a wait and see, but giving you the heads up, Louisiana, Texas, Mexico, watching that for the possibility of something trying to spin up as we work our way into next week. Hopefully it just brings some good old-fashioned rain. This would be by the time we get into Tuesday. So this is Tuesday afternoon. We'll see if this becomes a named system. Elsewhere, there's the buildup of moisture, a second area of moisture that is going to be building back through the Caribbean. And with that said, as we work our way into Tuesday, watching out for areas of flooding, and then look what happens. We shift our attention from the system that was in the Gulf to this. This is what I wanted to give you the early heads up on. And again, Hurricane Center not painting in this spot yet, but this is what I'm seeing long term. Now, this is way out in advance, but there's reasoning behind this. I don't just look at the models. The atmosphere will be right for a buildup of moisture right here. Look at all this rain once again. So a pretty similar scenario where we'll have rain building by Jamaica by next weekend. So this is not this weekend, this is next weekend. And then eventually something could try to organize anywhere from Jamaica, Cuba, Cayman Islands, back through the Bahamas, even near Florida. So I'll be watching another potential system. again, models aren't saying, hey, there's definitely going to be a hurricane, but a lot of the models are spinning something up from this direction, either lifting it up to the north near Jamaica, Cuba, and then by the time we get into the Bahamas, or kind of shifting it a little bit more toward the Gulf. So, to be very clear, again, one potential system in the Gulf trying to develop early next week. By late next week and next weekend, as I just showed you, about a week and a half out, I do believe we're going to see something trying to develop right in here. So we'll see, but giving you that early heads up that's what I'm seeing there. So trying to cover it here for you best I can, step by step, because there's a lot going on. Now, as we work our way out here, as promised, again, watching a couple strong tropical waves. Now, if you join me for my August forecast, and I put that out, I think, in late July, in over the last couple of weeks, I know a lot of you have been part of this channel for a long time, and thank you for subscribing. I was mentioning the big shift in the pattern. August would be more active. Typically is, though. It doesn't take a bright meteorologist to tell you that. But what I was mentioning was the pattern's going to change because we've had so much dry air, as you know. But look what is happening. I was mentioning how the dry air would shift to the north, and that's exactly where we stand right now. Look at all this tropical action out here. This orange shading, that's the dry air. This was over here even just a couple days ago. A lot of that dry air has shifted up to the north, and that was my concern for the potential of development out here. Now, I'll keep an eye on these waves, of course, very carefully. The early indications are that if this one off the coast of Africa wants to develop, that one would stay out to sea, but I'll watch it. And then this one may try to curve out to sea. Now, if it stays weak, and the American model is picking up on some of that too, it could just work its way toward the Caribbean and draw in a lot of moisture to the Caribbean. Still a wait and see, but again, I'm watching both of these systems, and of course, what's going on back toward California and Mexico, which I'll get to in a second. Now, there is no major threat right now. These are areas to watch. I know it could be a high stress time of year. Again, I don't root for hurricanes. I've been through many, many destructive hurricanes. I don't like them at all, actually. So with that, you know, that's why I do this channel and I track them. But there are no major threats now, but there are areas clearly to watch and pay attention. And the next name on the list will be Emily. So again, no signs of that definitely developing right now, but Emily is the next name in the Atlantic Basin. Franklin after that, and then Gert down the road, and then Harold. Now, you get a different set of names in the Eastern Pacific, and that is this, and that did flare up yesterday afternoon even further. A very impressive system, to say the least, and I mean that in the bad sense of the term. Hilary, very organized, very dangerous seas. You got to make those hurricane preps over toward the Baja California. Gulf of California, the seas are going to be a mess. The Gulf is going to be a mess, not Gulf of Mexico, as you get over toward the Gulf of California. And already tropical storm watches are out for parts of the Baja, including Cabo. And what's going to happen is, this is pretty historic, the fact that this could still be a tropical storm rolling right into California. Although we did have a similar scenario last year, we were tracking that. So by the time we get into Sunday night and Monday, we're going to see this as a tropical system trying to work its way through northwestern sections of Mexico and then right up into California, Southern California, and that will bring rain as well to Arizona and Nevada with an extremely high flood threat and some gusty winds. Extremely dangerous flash flooding will be a high concern in southwestern sections of the United States with this. The models, again, all have been in very good agreement, bringing this very close to the Baja, just kind of scraping by, at least initially, the Baja of California, then working inland and then feeding that moisture up to the north. And I do like when the models are in good agreement. I don't like when they're pointing at land. I wish they were more out to sea. But again, at least it gives us good agreement and the opportunity to prepare for the heavier weather working in. Now, this is what's going on. This map a little bit crazy. This is out in time. This is 24 hours out in time, 48 hours, so that's 2 days, 3 days out in time, and then so forth. So this is down the road. Now, Hilary is still going to strengthen, potentially into a major hurricane, which would be Category 3. It's going to bring some hurricane conditions to the Baja of California. Please make those preparations. And then eventually, once it moves inland and encounters some cooler water and encounters the land friction, it will weaken. So it is going to be weakening as it moves toward the southwestern United States. But southwestern United States, this is not typical at all. And again, with the terrain and all that good stuff, that's going to be a major, major problem. And again, I can't stress the flood threat enough. So let me break it down and then show you the winds and the rain. Now, here's the American model, which has done a very good job on this system, better than the European model by far. European model is shooting this thing way out to sea just a couple days ago. Now, this is going to, again, bring those at least tropical storm conditions. So hopefully the core of the system right here offshore, but you see again on the east side, it just filters in. You get that counterclockwise motion in a system, so it feeds in all of that moisture and some gusty winds. This is by Saturday afternoon. Saturday afternoon, some of the rain starts to work in. You get sometimes that ahead of these, a predecessor rain event. I did a lot of studying back on that way back when in college. So you're going to see rain ahead of the system, which is not a good thing because you're already going to get that ground saturated and get that runoff. And then by Sunday, you see the system again, potential landfall in the Baja as a hurricane or tropical storm. Yes, it's going to weaken, but again, southwestern United States is not used to handling this. So again, with that, and I don't mean you personally, of course, I mean maybe that too, but the terrain. Again, this is going to be a big issue with the rain working in late this weekend, especially into early next week. I'm highly concerned about flash flooding parts of Southern California into Arizona, even potentially Nevada. Now here are the winds, core of the winds right here in this white shading and then the red shading. The red shading would be 110 kilometers an hour or 70 miles per hour, very close to hurricane status. And then they get even higher than that. We're going to have some of the winds of 90 to 100, potentially upwards of 120 miles per hour. So that's upwards close to 200 kilometers an hour. But again, the core right here, let's just track the core together, staying offshore. But again, on the east side, you get those strong winds moving in. We're easily going to have the gust 50, 60 miles per hour plus, even sustained at times, and then even higher once it works into the Baja. By the time we get into Sunday, that'll be some of the worst weather, central northern Baja, and then yes, some weakening, but still look at this white shading working in Sunday into Monday over towards Southern California and parts of southwestern Arizona. Those are winds still around 50 miles per hour. On top of that, you throw the rain, and again, life-threatening flash flooding, not only in Mexico. In Mexico, we have dealt with some of this before, but in southwestern sections of the United States. Again, life-threatening flash flooding. And I know all the emergency officials are making those preps for a very historic system rolling in. There's the core of the rain offshore the next couple days. But you see, again, some of these colors popping up. They're even off my chart. So again, you're looking at over 150 millimeters of rain or over 6 inches of rain. Again, I cover a lot of folks on this channel just to help keep people safe. So again, I've got millimeters and inches on your screen. And again, we are off the chart on this. So again, especially Southern California, Baja, and then as we work our way into southwestern and just western portions of Arizona, life-threatening flooding will be a possibility, even up through Nevada. So again, Fernanda and Greg are out there. Greg, by the way, stayed south of Hawaii. Hilary is the one we're watching now. Irwin, that would be the next name on the list on the Eastern Pacific side. Eastern Pacific, still called hurricanes. When you get elsewhere in the Pacific, they're called typhoons. So you get different lists, different names as you get into different parts of the world. Now, Trinidad and Tobago, again, I highlighted us earlier in the week for that high chance of rain. Still watching out for isolated areas of flooding. For us in Grenada, same thing, 60 to 70% chance of rain over the next couple days. I want to recap what I went over in a second. Barbados, 40 to 50%, but a little uptick. And then again, I'm watching the tropical waves off to the west, off to the east in the Atlantic, and I'll monitor that. Again, if that one stays weak, that could draw in more moisture. St. Lucia, Friday, Saturday, 50% chance of rain, 60% chance. St. Vincent of the Grenadines favoring our southern zones once again. Not all day stuff, but watching out for the rain. Jamaica, a 50 to 60% chance, watching out for scattered storms. And then again, about a week and a half from now, I'll be watching out for that flare-up of rain and storms that could develop into something. 30 to 40% chance the next couple days in Belize. Cayman Islands, a 50% chance. Today, tomorrow, and Saturday. Next 2 days in the Bahamas, rain chance 50%, but then it goes way up. We're going to see that rain chance increase because that's where the moisture builds. It's already building near the Turks and Caicos, and then it's going to work its way through. So we're going to see, it depends on where we are in the Bahamas. Again, we have 700 islands, big stretch, but again, rain chance going up. Same thing, Turks and Caicos, as that area nearby shifts to Florida and then into the Gulf of Mexico. Guadalupe holding steady at a 40% chance of rain, 40 to 50% chance the next 3 days in Dominica and Martinique. So again, scattered showers and thunderstorms, 60% chance for today in Puerto Rico. That can lead to some isolated flooding. Yes, it helps with the heat in spots, but again, watching out for some thunderstorms. U.S. and British Virgin Islands, 30 to 40% chance of some rain and storms. Haiti, isolated to scattered thunderstorms the next 3 days. and isolated flooding possible. Dominican Republic, rain chance 60% the next 3 days as we work our way into St. Kitts, Nevis, and Montserrat, the rain chance holding at 30%, and another 30% chance Antigua and Barbuda, again scattered passing showers possible. Anguilla the next 3 days for us in Anguilla, rain chance 30%. St. Martin, St. Eustatia, 30 to 40% chance as we get into the weekend. Very limited in Aruba, 10 to 20% chance. Very limited in Curacao, 10 to 20% chance. Bonaire included. And as we work our way into Guyana, rain chance is still elevated. Isolated areas of flooding. Getting back towards Suriname, 50 to 60% chance the next 2 days, down to a 40% chance on Saturday. Costa Rica, that rain chance, I've been talking about this for a while, is on the very high side, watching out for some areas of flooding. Northern Venezuela, about a 40% chance. So this is where it stands. Again, recapping what we were talking about. We're watching the Gulf, at least I'm watching the Gulf, we're watching it together. Gulf of Mexico, we're going to see that moisture from the Bahamas start to work in. And then by the time we get into next week, I'll keep a very close eye on the Caribbean for the potential of development there. And then we have two developing areas. Those are the ones out in the Atlantic. I'll keep an eye on those. And then, of course, watching California and Mexico with Hilary moving in. So a concern will be close to home overall because those water temperatures are so warm, just like what could develop in the Gulf. It's hard for me to tell if something is going to spin up into a named system, but I'm a little bit concerned about it. Hopefully it just brings some needed rain for parts of Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana, but I'll be watching that. Next name on the Atlantic side is Emily. So plenty to cover. I'll do my best to take you step by step through the hurricane season to help keep you safe, to help keep your property safe, and of course, thinking about your friends and family. Thank you for sharing this channel with them. Have a good rest of your day and stay safe.